Alright, hello once again. Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. As part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class, I'm going through a series of video presentations. I've already done several presentations, many of which are based on the book we're using for the class, which, as you can see here, is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, 5th edition, an A-Press text by Adam Freeman. That book has 27 chapters in it, and I've done video presentations on all 27 chapters. All right. Chapters 7 through 13 in the book go through an actual ASP.NET 5 MVC, or Model View Controller application, where you build something called a sports store. All right. But before we're going through that, I've decided to have us go through and basically go through this document right here, which hopefully I can find this. So hold on a sec. So first we're going over this thing right here, that's this tutorial on getting started with Entity Framework 6 code first using MVC. All right, and that's where I am right here. We're really making super good progress. And what I mean by that is I'm already up to page 19, I think it is, of about 29 pages or 30 pages in this. So we'll continue on in a minute. When we get done with this document, we're going to be going over another one, which is the same type of thing, but rather than it being code first, it'll be database first. All right. So we left off where we had just created our data. Now we want to go in and we want to add here some information. Okay, so it says to tell the Entity Framework to use your initializer class, add an element into the Entity Framework element, all right, as shown in the following example. So I guess we're supposed to add this. Okay, so one quick thing, that is, just so you know, each project like this that you create actually has two web config files in it. One that is under the views folder right there. You very rarely will touch that one. The other one that's under web config, and that is the one that we'll be working with. All right. Now it doesn't look exactly like the one that's in the book, and you know what? That is totally fine. So right under Entity Framework, we want to put this context thing. So do we have Entity Framework in here? Ah. There it is, Entity Framework. All right. So it said we wanted to go in there, and before we did anything else, put in that contexts class. All right. This is letting us know that the file that we need, that is the glue that holds this together, all right, that file is located under Contoso University, the name of our project, .dal, all right, our data access layer folder, .school context. All right. And I believe this is just showing us here that that's the name of the project. Database initializer, it says we've created an initialization file that's got our beginning data in it under that project. Right, so that's what we just put in there. All right. As it says here, the context type specifies the fully qualified context, class name, and the assembly it's in. Okay? There's another way we can do it too, and they mentioned that. I'm not going to read that to you. But we're going to go over, remember, the database first stuff, which will show another way of doing this. All right. The application is now set up so that when we access the database for the first time in a given run, the entity framework compares the database to the model. If there's a difference, it'll drop it in. Okay. When you deploy an application to a production web server, you must remove or disable the code that drops or recreates the database. You'll do this in a later tutorial in the series, so we won't worry about it right now. All right. The next thing that's discussed in here, as you can see, is it says there's setup EF6 to use local DB. Again, as mentioned previously, we're going great guns in here. We're kind of blazing through it. I'm on page 21 of 29, which is great. All right. When we do this in class, right now it might seem like we're moving in ultra fast motion. When we do it in class, if nothing else, it'll almost seem like we're doing it in ultra slow motion. All right. There's a reason for that too. Okay. All right. So, as it says, we're going to use local DB. Notice all this stuff in here is hyperlinked. If you want information or more information than I'm giving you, right mouse click and open it up in a new window or whatever. It says there, local DB is a lightweight version of SQL Server Express. It's easy to install and configure. It starts on demand, and it runs in user mode. Local DB runs a special execution mode of SQL Server Express that allows you to work with databases as .mdf file. And I believe MDF is short for Microsoft Database File. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. You can put local DB database files right in the app data folder of your web project. That's nice if you want to be able to copy the information and the database along with your project. As it says, the user instance feature also allows you to work with .mdf files, but that's been deprecated, so local DB is recommended for working with MDF files. It's installed, here's the key part, local DB is installed by default when we installed Visual Studio. Okay. Now, it's set up, notice the word local. It is set up so that by default we will be using it, but we will be using it with our local machine only. So as it says, typically it's not used for production web applications. It's not recommended for production use because it's not designed to work with IIS, which is basically the type of server that you quite often will use to host your ASP.NET application. So, it says here, in this tutorial we'll work with local DB, open the application, the web.config file again, and add a connection string, all right before the app strings. So let's add it, then we'll go and take a look at it. All right. All right, so we want to, again, we want to put this right before we have app settings, which I know is in here someplace. There's app settings. All right, so I'm hitting enter and I'm pasting that in. That's our connection string. Notice add name equals school context. That name is the same name as what we have here. Is that mandatory? No, but it is recommended. All right. Now, next they say connection string equals DB source, etc. Local DB. MSSQL, local DB. Hopefully this will work fine the way it is. It's not the way I typically do it, but I'm following their lead. Initial catalog equals Contoso University 1. That should be the name of our database. If it works, it'll show up in here in a couple minutes under our app data folder. Integrated security equals SSPI, which means that we're using Windows authentication. In other words, if you're logged in into your Windows account, you'll have access to this. And this here provider says we're working with SQL on the client, which is what we're doing. If you don't like my explanation, you can read this, and you can read if you want more. All right? Now, I'm only at 11 minutes, but I'm doing something that to me is totally different. We're about to come in and create a controller and create some views. And really, that's pretty much what's left in this project. All right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop right here, even though it's early. All right, I'm going to stop, and I don't know if I'll have one more lecture or two more lectures on this. But I'll do that as soon as I come back. Let's see. All right, you can see this is still running. So what I have to do is just pause this right here, wait for this to stop, remove the production stuff. It removes it on the screen here, but it's still in the correct folders. And then I will come back, continue on with creating controller and views in just a couple minutes.